Hello guys, I'm Master John Drake,
And I'm his student, Millicent Rowan.
and today we're gonna do a video about hand before foot versus foot before hand discussion. I made a video about this topic 2 or 3 years ago that spurred a lot of discussion, and so I kind of wanted to revisit that topic and talk about it because I think that a lot of people don't. This is something that I think a lot of people teach that is just not. They teach something that is just not done. Um,
Hmm.
when I sat down to make that video, so just to be clear, most people teach the way to do a lunge and fencing is you reach your hand out all the way till your hand is fully extended, and then you lunge, and then you move your foot second. That is how most everyone, if you went to someone to teach you to lunge, that's how almost everyone teaches you to lunge.
That's how it is
I,
taught.
yeah, I sat down to make a video where I was going to discuss how I thought that was only good some of the time, and other times you should really move your hand foot at the same time or move your hand second. I could not find almost any clips of people moving their hand first. I looked, and I'm not talking like lower level fencers. I'm talking like some of the best fencers in the SCA that I know, like very good rapier fighters. None of them move their hand first. They almost all move their hand at the same time, or they move their hand second,
Yeah.
till they have created
This
like an off time attack.
this even includes people who taught people to throw their hand first. So people that I've run into who actually told me, make sure you have hand and then foot, and then we watched slow-mos of them fighting and they didn't
Yeah.
do that.
You can watch. I'll go. I'll look at this. I'll see someone drilling, like a clip of people drilling. There's a lot of clips of that, like on Instagram and stuff. And I'll see the clip and I'll watch. And when they're going slow, and they're warming up, their hand will go first and then they'll move their foot. Their hand will go first and then move their foot. And then as they speed up to getting to the point
Hmm.
where they're like going to like combat speed, their hand and foot is moved at the same time.
Right. Single
Almost
tempo.
universally, hand and foot at the same time. And so I really think that it's just a myth that I don't think anyone really does. And if you have a clip you can find of at speed in a high pressure situation or even just in some type of sparring, if you can find a clip of someone or yourself moving your hand to full extension before you move your foot, like is taught, please send that to me. I would or put a link in the comments of this video. I would love to see that because I just have not been able to find it. So I'm going to show a clip here from this is from the Rose tourney this last Gulf Wars. This is approximately like the top six or so. And
Hmm.
this is me and Master Kato here in the white. And Master Kato is a very good fencer and fences from an Italian system, which teaches hand before foot. But if you I'm gonna play this clip slow, if you watch as he steps in here, his foot begins to move, and it's a little behind the list rope here, but you can see that his foot moves right here to start, and his hand
Yeah.
hasn't moved at all.
No.
And then his
In this
hand,
case, his hand is actually going second to his
yeah.
foot very slightly.
And he falls into a really great lunge here, really good straight
Beautiful.
line. So I'm not saying this is a great attack. I'm just saying that this is how
Hmm.
most high level fencers lunge, and this is the ideal, not hand
Hmm.
first because it's just not done.
Yeah. This
Um,
is a gorgeous attack.
yeah. So that's just a clip. So a lot of the argument that people made to me when I made that video a few years ago is they said that well, people in the SCA were just amateurs. We're not professional fencers. And in people in period would have been better. They would have had better blade work. So I decided to look at modern fencing. This is the gold medal match for the Tokyo Olympics. So I think these probably people are probably pretty good at fencing and pretty well trained. And if you go to a modern fencing school, or gym or whatever, they will teach you hand first as well. But if you
Yes.
play this clip on play slow motion, if you watch the fighter here on the right, if you watch his foot is moving, and now his hand starts to move. So his hand and foot move pretty close to the same time. If anything, his hand moves a little late. What the modern fencer is doing here that's really good is his hand and foot are lined up, are synced up really good at the end. You see that his foot is getting to full extension about the same time his hand is getting to extension. So this is very efficient. This is a really good lunge. This is obviously a better lunge than most of us in the SCA do because we're not professional athletes. But he is not moving his hand first,
Hmm.
um, which
Yeah,
is
that
not
that's
what is taught.
yeah, that landing at the same time is very nice. It's very hard to block.
Yeah,
Very
because
hard to perceive what's
yeah.
happening.
So another point that we wanted to go over here was that a lot of people will say if you move your hand first, people won't be
Hmm.
able to see the shot because our eyes don't see forward motion towards our eye very well. We see side to side motion really well.
Hmm.
But I think that body moves forward too, if everything just comes forward at once, that's really hard to see.
Yeah. And like the perception that y motion coming straight at you is hard to perceive and our depth perception doesn't like to pick it up very well is completely true. And your foot going with your hand at the same time just capitalizes on that effect. It doesn't minimize it, it doesn't make it worse with your body moving, it just increases it.
Yeah,
And you're basically making yourself faster by making that a single tempo. Like if you attack me sword and foot at the same time, I have even less time to block it. You've gone way faster, I've had less time to perceive it, whereas if you had hand first, then body, I might have a little bit more time to respond, a little
yeah,
bit more time to mentally process, perceive the distance, and block.
yeah,
Uh, whereas that foot going at the same time,
yeah.
much harder to deal with.
And this is once again the Tokyo Olympics. This is the women's gold medal match, and you can watch here once again the fencer here on the right will do a lunge, um, and once again you can see her foot and her hand
Same
pretty
time.
much start moving at the exact same time, and she hits her in the arm right there. Um, so even these are, Olympic level athletes, some of the best people in the world at doing what they're doing, and they're not doing hand first, not in the way that is taught. So I just don't know that hand first is really practical because I just have not been able to find great examples of it.
And we
Um,
have looked.
I have looked.
John watches a lot of
Yeah,
fencing
lots
videos
of
and
videos.
dug through it for now, at this point, years.
Yeah,
And we still haven't really found some good examples of hand first, then foot, and that being effective long term, or even, see, I even fell into the same trap, even being practical. Like, we're trying to find people just doing it at all,
yeah.
at
So
speed.
a lot of, and I'll show this last clip here. A lot of people will make really the argument happened a lot when I made that last video about what was better. That I was saying that
Right.
foot first was better. I don't think that that's really the point of this conversation anymore because you can't have an argument about hand before foot, or you can't have an argument either way because I cannot find hand first.
Yeah, it's hard to say one is better if you just can't find one of
Yeah,
them.
so I think it's possible that hand first might make sense on paper, right? Like in
Hmm.
when you're discussing theoretically, it is better. But I just since I haven't really been able to find people doing it, I think I have a hard time making an argument that it is right from that perspective because it's just we just there's no way to compare because there's no one doing it that way.
There
uh,
was, as far as discussion on paper, there was one interesting thing that came up for training, which was that moving your hand second was actually faster because your hand is faster, and so it could catch up to the foot. And if anything, we've seen some video evidence that seems to be true, but I've only had one teacher ever say that. It was a really interesting concept, and
yeah,
it
it's a very good
seems to
point.
be accurate.
So I'll show this last. This is actually a cut and thrust fight here. And this fighter in the black, Master Mateo, makes an attack here, and his foot moves here. This is a few frames before his hand really extends out from his arm, and he tries to
But it shows
throw.
that it's still practical for a cut and thrust bout.
Yeah, and he gives a little back at, tries to do a little false edge cut, which does not land, but still.
Good
Um,
attack.
yeah. So those are the three clips I had, or four clips I had today. Sorry. But the other point we were going to make is people have also asked us about, and Rowan was going to talk about this a little more, was about
Mhm.
training and how you teach because I think it's possible to make an argument that when people are saying hand first, what they really mean is not body, right? Like newer fencers when they lunge, sometimes they lean their body in before they go, right? And that's not good unless you're doing it as a fake, right? But when you're just trying to learn, generally not good. So so you do want to have your hand move early, right, at the same time as your foot. And so how do you get someone to do what is the best way to describe that action?
Mhm.
Um,
And
Go ahead, Ron.
for both, pretty much for any movement, we like to talk about picture somebody's holding the tip of your sword or that there's a rope tied to the tip of your sword and then it's being pulled forward. So the idea is that your tip glides forward as efficiently as it can, and behind that your body follows. And so for that, you are sort of saying hand first, but I never tell students to actually throw their hand first because when I see people do that with students, you see a lot of people lining up and throwing hand, then body. So it's two tempos. And that is very slow. It actually handicaps a lot of students for a long time because they've broken this movement into two pieces and they've slowed themselves down. So I try to tell people to not even think about hand versus body, like which one's first. You say, have somebody like pulling your sword forward and you go behind it. And make sure you don't have a bunch of up down movements with your sword and not a lot of up down movements with your body. You're just gliding forward as efficiently as you can.
Yeah. And this lunge from Kato is a great example of that. He just
Beautiful.
extends out smoothly, reaches out with his hand,
Boom.
creates a straight line from his hand to his back foot, profiled. This is a great lunge. It is. This is textbook to me. Um, this is what I think people mean when they say hand first, but it's not how it looks when they demonstrate it.
Right.
So, as I said in my original video, I really have a problem when we teach things that we don't do. I try to make everything I teach how I fence. And if I find out that what I'm teaching, if I find a better way, like if I figure out something that's better, then I abandon my old way of teaching it and embrace a new technique and a little bit of it. And so I think that we should stop worrying so much about hand first and just start worrying about making sure the lunge is smooth and efficient, and everything's going at once.
Yes.
And I understand some people are going to make the argument that that's what they when they say hand first, that's really what they mean. And I could debate about what the best way to teach is, what the best verbiage is to teach. But I really think, especially when we're having discussions at a higher level, we should be saying exactly what we're doing and not. Because I think a lot of people, and this is my biggest pet peeve in fencing, is people will say they don't understand how they're winning. Like good fencers will teach their students. They're like, oh, this is how I
Mm-hmm.
win fights, and then you look at the video and it's just they're doing a lot of good stuff. It is just not they're not doing good stuff. The good stuff they're doing is not what they're saying,
Yes.
and I really
And
want those to line up.
like from a student perspective, like I'm a teacher and I'm a student, it's actually unfair to your students if you don't actually teach what you're doing, especially if you're an effective fencer, especially if you're top of your game and you won't actually teach what you do, you're depriving your students of good knowledge for no reason.
Yeah,
So I like to teach them to send their sword and your foot forward pretty much at the same time, or just not overthink it, because in reality that's how we fight.
yeah. And one more point on that, and maybe this would be a good whole other video to make.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when a lot of times when someone asks me a question about how to do a technique, I will go look at videos of myself doing that to make sure that I understand that what I'm about to say is what I'm actually doing. And I spend a lot of time studying my own fights and other fights, and I think I have a good understanding. But I check myself regularly to make sure that I'm in line with what I'm teaching, that my fighting is in line with what I'm teaching, and that other good fighters are also doing similar techniques, right? Like I double check myself regularly on that, and
Yeah,
I encourage other people to do the same.
I think
Uh,
it's a mark of a good teacher to make sure they're keeping themselves honest.
yeah. Hopefully this was an interesting video. If you're interested in more videos, please like and subscribe this video. It helps the video out. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments or reach out to us on social media. But we'll see y'all later.
Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.